Curious to talk to you all about the development of this shoe because for something called Kinvara, it feels like it couldn't be any different than the Kinvara. So can we first just start kind of with the story behind like where this shoe came from and the idea came from, and why is it called Kinvara Pro? But why does it have Kinvara in it?
It's a great question, and I think a question that will be asked a lot, and hopefully I can point them to this episode in the future. So I hope if I say it once and it's really great, then it'll be the last time. But I think the story honestly starts back in, call it 2009, 2010. It's when I started grad school. So I just graduated from the College of New Jersey, and I was moving on to Penn State to study biomechanics. And it was a really exciting time to be in biomechanics research for a couple of different reasons. And one was because of maybe two different publications that came out right around the same time. One is Born to Run, and if any of the listeners haven't had a chance to read it, it's an interesting read. And also a publication in this little academic journal called Nature by Dan Lieberman and foot strike patterns and collision forces in habitually shod and barefoot runners. So between those two, it was maybe not the first time, but at least the first time in my academic life that biomechanics had become kind of popular, and people it had permeated through academia and into kind of popular culture in a lot of ways. And it was an interesting time for me because that's around the time where I really started to get into running, and it was pretty much the reason that I'm here today is because of the original Saucony Kinvara, and it was a perfect example of what Andrea just mentioned, democratized innovation. So it was right around this time, everyone's starting to think, okay, we need barefoot running and barefoot shoes, which is a paradox, right? But this is when these super minimal, super lightweight, very flexible shoes started coming out, 0 heel-toe offset, 0 millimeter heel-to-toe offset. And these were just everyone was scrambling to make the best barefoot shoe, in quotes, possible. And at the time, Saucony thought, well, and I'm saying Saucony as a third party because I wasn't in the company at the time, unfortunately. But so the focus was, well, how do we take this very popular trend and make it borrow aspects from this trend and from this research to make a shoe that's more accessible to everyone. So what you see in the Kinvara, the original Kinvara, it's a low stack, but it's not almost nothing stack. It's 4 millimeter heel to toe offset. It's not 0 millimeter. It's lightweight, but it's not a coating of paint on the bottom of your foot. And it basically took some bits and pieces of what designers were starting to think about in the barefoot running trend, but made it more accessible so more people could. It was the gateway drug essentially into minimalism, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, it always became, the Kinvara, the idea of the Kinvara was always this kind of emphasis toward making something that's taking a popular trend and democratizing it and making it more accessible for more people. So hopefully you start to see where the path I'm traveling
and
enter
down. In Kinvara Pro.
Right.
So tell us, I guess that, in that vein. So then what is this all stealing from? I could probably take stabs at it, but we have you here
of course. Yeah. So fast forward. so fast forward maybe 10 years or so, minimalism is gone, maybe not gone, but minimalism is a very minimal, thought in a lot of people's minds. And, the original 4% Vaporfly comes out. Now this, has exploded, and every footwear manufacturer is making what, we're calling a quote unquote super shoe, right? So a highly resilient, highly compliant, low density foam, usually, but not exclusively, with a plate, often carbon fiber plate. And this has been a really huge trend of the past 4 or 5 years, and you might be thinking in your mind, well, wait a second, didn't Saucony already try? Didn't we already try to make a everyday, or a more accessible carbon fiber super shoe? The answer is yes. It was the Endorphin Speed, right? Which became one of the most popular shoes. I don't know if I could say ever, but it's an extremely popular shoe that tested well, sold well, and it worked well for a large number of people in a large number of situations. Now, I'm saying a large number because I know Nate, I believe you might have not loved the Speed 1/2. And
Correct.
I believe the answer was related to stability. And I think that might have been, if there was a complaint, which was very infrequent, probably it was related to stability. So I think we've addressed a lot of that in the Speed 3. But we tried to say...
Which is funny. Now you make me happy now that you did it for me. And then some people are like, oh, I missed the 1 and the personally. 2. It felt... Yeah, thank you.
But we, around maybe 2-3 years ago, we started to think, well, if we started from scratch and said, how would we make a plated super foam style super shoe for the everyday runner at everyday training paces, how would we go about tackling that design challenge? And that's kind of the impetus behind the name and the kind of story around the Kinvara Pro.